Welcome to Hero Factory, ladies and gentlemen. Today, on the Bionicle Inspiration series, we're going to be talking about Hero Factory themed MOCs. Obviously, this is normally the Bionicle Inspiration series. I kind of use that as just like a larger term. It should really be the Construction Inspiration series, but no actual Bionicle talk necessarily today. I mean, we'll talk about like Bionicle pieces, I guess, but we're specifically focusing on some of the heroes and villains of Hero Factory, which is such a rich, awesome universe. And, you know, everyone's always saying, hey, bring back Bionicle. Man, bring back Hero Factory. Hero Factory was such an awesome theme with some really fun concepts and such a big old cool world. So let's talk about some of the cool Hero Factory related stuff that's out there in the community in the hopes that we can inspire you. Let's begin with the very first Hero Factory MOC. This is by Jungwon MOCs. I'm totally mispronouncing that. I apologize, but that's built by you, and it's Stringer. I think. On Twitter, I had to use the old Google Translate to be able to read some of the tweets about this MOC, and there's, from what I could see, not a lot of tweets about this MOC, and none of them mention any kind of name, but it kind of looks like Jimmy Stringer from Hero Factory, so that's what we're going to say it is. But what I love about this MOC is some of the color choices here. So we can see a bunch of these armor pieces in this sort of like murky yellow. It's almost sort of this like mix of kind of like Keat orange and hints of like almost like trans black, or just sort of like a very light black of sorts. It's such a unique piece that only came on the one set, which was Carapace. But yeah, we can see these pieces being used here to great avail. I think because there is that sort of subtle hint of black marbled kind of into those pieces, it complements the just sort of pure black of this MOC very, very nicely. And I love too the way that a lot of them are attached. You know, there's sort of very similar to CCBS armor. Carapace had sort of two bar connections towards the base of those pieces. So whenever that's been attached, we can see some of these T-pneumatic tube pieces in black being just placed into those holes. And I like that because it kind of looks like some sort of like nail or some sort of, you know, reinforcement or something that he's used to actually attach them onto his body. I kind of maybe get the sense that Stringer defeated some dragon or some sort of crazy powerful creature and then like peeled the scales off of its corpse and like strapped them on, and those T-tubes are like straps or something like that to attach them to his body. Maybe that's not the actual story behind this, but that's kind of what I see at least. Or, you know, some prototype armor that the people at Hero Factory have made, and it's like got to be kind of like strapped onto the armor or something like that. It's a fun little detail, and I think it works really, really well. So some really nice color play here, and, you know, definitely take a look at certain sets like that had very specifically colored pieces, because they can be really fun to play with because there's just so few of them. And this is just the exact same piece sort of spammed across the MOC here. So, you know, maybe you buy one or two Carapace sets, or you just go on Bricklink and you order a bunch of that one specific piece, and suddenly you've got a really unique thing that you can play with. So yeah, just a really clever idea to be using that, I think, because, you know, as a mocker, that's always exciting to be able to play with that sort of stuff. So really cool, and it works so well on this MOC. The overall aesthetic of this guy, I think, is also really impressive. He's just very bulky, very sturdy, looks very much like War Machine from many iterations of his armor from the MCU, and I guess also the comics. It also helps that he's got a big old sort of shoulder-mounted gun of sorts there. That's really cool. The little pop of orange with that wire behind his head, just kind of noticed that there. That's really nice. Just, I don't know, that little subtle accent of color there is very welcoming, I think. It's cool. But yeah, the idea of kind of really buffing him out here and giving him big old, you know, sturdy, strong shoulders and a really nice sort of silhouette here, really, really cool. Yeah, I think it perfectly kind of complements this character and just works really well. So yeah, that's awesome. One other detail I love is the choice of using Wenwa Hordika's mask here for sort of like upper leg armor of sorts. Just works well, just looks cool, kind of blends in with everything else there, and is just awesome. So lovely work, good sir. Let's move over to the next one. That was a hero, now to a villain. This is by EMS MOCs, and this is Steam Crusher. So this is kind of an original character, which I think that's something that's really fun about Hero Factory, is that, you know, there were so many different heroes, there were so many different villains, and they always went to different locations, like the jungle, the water, wherever. So you could always theme them to certain locations or ideas or concepts, and you can totally go crazy and make whatever kind of villain or hero you want. And, you know, Hero Factory was always a little bit more sort of like goofy at times. You know, Bionicle very much took itself seriously, whereas Hero Factory was just kind of did what it wanted, and I think that was one of the beautiful things about it. So it's a cool idea like this to be like, hey, this guy's got a big old anchor for his weapon. He's a little bit sort of like aquatic themed, or maybe like some sort of old diving suit of sorts. It's just, you can really branch out and do some more obscure concepts like that. That probably would still work with Bionicle, to be honest, but certainly are more at home with Hero Factory. I really like that. So I mentioned this anchor weapon. It's really cool, using one of those like Vizon chain pieces for a big old sturdy looking chain. And then the sort of accented piece on this here is Wenawa's sort of claw pieces from Wenawa Metru. That is a very clever idea to use that there. It's very fitting for a sort of anchor design, and especially like a sort of subtly different anchor. An actual anchor maybe looks a little bit different, but it's more or less the same shape. But it's nice to see it sort of slightly altered in some way to fit with a different universe in that sense. So that's pretty cool, and a clever idea for a sort of water themed mock to give them a big old anchor that they sort of throw around and stuff like that. I love the asymmetry on the hands here. One hand has those Exoforce robot kind of claw pieces, and then little minifigure hands attached onto that to give it this really sort of like sinister, evil-looking hand. And then the other one's just your standard like Hydraxon-style hand with the Exoforce robot arm pieces this time, not the hand pieces. But I like that asymmetry. It kind of, I don't know, it seems similar to like a pirate hook. The fact that a pirate has a hand missing and they've replaced it with something instead of it being a hook. It's a more sort of sinister looking hand. I don't know, it implies that this guy's a little bit sort of rough around the edges and, has probably been in a lot of battles and got a lot of scars and stuff like that. So he's had to sort of replace parts of his body and things like that. It kind of tells a story about the character, it's a clever idea. I really appreciate that sort of subtle asymmetry there. It's really cool. I love his really bulky torso here. I kind of mentioned before there was sort of maybe like a sort of diving suit aesthetic to this mock. So you can see those big old tires on the torso there, which sort of seems fitting for that idea. I said tires. I was mixing my point that I was about to talk about. I meant the like steering wheel pieces in light bluish grey that are sort of just underneath the mask there. Those sort of fit that diving aesthetic. But then there's also tires on his shoulders, which is where I mixed up things. And I like that. These came on a bunch of different Power Miners sets, specifically like this one, for example. And there's a few different variations of those tire pieces. There's another one that's more or less the same size, but it sort of juts out on the edge there. And it's a very unique and interesting piece, and it's great to see it being used more specifically on Bionicle stuff. Especially sort of integrating it into the torso there to really give him a bit more kind of like bulk and make him look a lot more sort of like muscular and huge. It's just a clever idea, and wheel pieces are always in abundance. I think pretty much everyone in their LEGO collection always has a lot of them. Well, I don't know, I don't want to speak for people, they may not, but like I've met many people who have had a lot of tires that they don't really use. So if you can integrate them into a design like this, it might be a good way to actually put use to those pieces, So yeah, I think it's a really cool torso design. The final point with this, I love the mask choice. So what I think this is, it's a little hard to see in some of these photos here, but what I believe this is Splitface's mask, except with Splitface, obviously he had the red side and the gunmetal side, but this is buying 2 of that set, and then removing the red and just having doubled up gunmetal. And I think kind of the way you look at it, this is where I'm kind of a little confused about whether it is or isn't what I'm saying. Because it could be a custom mask that's just a pure gunmetal version of it. I don't know. I don't think so. If you kind of look at sort of like the dividing line down the middle there, it looks like it doesn't quite match up, because I believe, it wouldn't. It's 2 left sides, I believe, not quite aligning properly. And I kind of like that. Again, it's that sort of like thrown together look that this character has, this sort of, I've been fighting a lot and parts of my body are damaged, so I've had to repair them, and maybe I didn't do the best job at doing it, So I like the fact that you can see a bit of asymmetry to it, or certain things don't quite line up on either side of the mask. It just kind of fits with the aesthetic of this mock, so it's a good choice there, and always nice to see that mask being used in a symmetrical manner instead of having the colors be different on both sides there, because it's a cool mask, and I don't know, you didn't see people use it too much. It's pretty cool. Let's move over to the next mock, another villain. This is by Rick Bionicle Mocs, and this is Jaw Tread. So this is kind of like a zombie character, and I love that idea. We had the brain attack wave of Hero Factory, which I guess is kind of the closest thing we got to Construction zombies. Maybe some of the skeletons from G2 might be a bit closer, hard to say. But I love the idea of heroes versus zombies. That could be like a cool collab or a contest or something. Yeah, like zombie villains and stuff like that. So it's a clever idea, and I think it's done well here. And I don't know, it just seems like something that LEGO could have done as a sort of additional wave of Hero Factory sets. So I love that. But yeah, I think that's very effectively communicated here with this asymmetrical design. You know, one arm here is more robotic with larger claws. The other one still slightly robotic, but smaller claws and a bit more dark blue. The legs, same sort of story. One's a bit more, kind of like infected of sorts. It's got more kind of spikes and wires and different things all over it. And then, of course, there's the trans neon green, which it always looks very yellow to me, that color. Which kind of looks like some sort of virus that's like coursing through his body or something like that, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think very nice attention to detail there to convey that sort of zombie aesthetic. It looks really cool. The mask choice I think is also very clever, using Jawblade's mask and then a dark blue Rakshi head for the sort of like lower jaw there. I don't know, I just like that. I don't know why it works for a zombie mock, but it kind of just does. I don't know, there's something very fitting for it there. So yeah, great to see some of those more obscure villain characters getting their masks being used here on these last two mocks here. Very, very cool. But yeah, I think this is a really cool aesthetic and a very nice way of designing a Hero Factory villain character. So love your work. On to the final mock now. This is by Bionicle, and this is a revamp of Nex. This is just a really clean, nice-looking Hero Factory mock here, and I just really appreciate that. You know, there's not necessarily any kind of major gimmick. He hasn't been given him a big old sword or a gun, or he transforms or something weird. He's just a stock standard guy, but man, he looks cool, you know? And there's just some beautiful shaping here. I love how he's done the torso using some of these orange, like kind of hockey pieces. I think they originally came in some of those old sport hockey sets. But these specifically came on Uplink, one of the old Exoforce sets, which I love Exoforce. LEGO, if you're listening, bring it back, please. I know you're not going to decide entire financial decisions on what theme to come next based off one guy from one video, but come on, man, Exoforce is so good. I know I'm not the only one who said that. Anyway, I don't even know if LEGO listens. Who knows? But hey, that's a really cool piece, and it's nicely integrated into that torso. It's got some smooth textures. It works well with your other CCBS pieces, like those beautiful Commander Cody orange shoulder pads there. Really, really nice. Some other integration that I think is really cool is the arm design. I like the fact that it kind of juts out a little bit, but it's primarily based around a Metru head, and a Huna, an orange Huna from Vakama. And man, that looks so good. That looks so good. I love how that, you kind of get the like mustache part, the sort of bottom beard, mouth area of Vakama, and you use that as sort of like a jutting out like spike on the sort of shoulders almost. It's a cool design. It's really, really cool. So yeah, I think that complements the, excuse me, that complements the very small Hero Factory armor piece sort of towards the base of the lower arm there very nicely. And when it's put on an angle like that there, instead of just being, splattered onto the mask or the face of the character there, it blends very nicely with CCBS pieces. So a very nice part use there, that's for sure. So one of my favorite areas of this mock is sort of like the waist or the lower leg area here, using some of these orange Mutter feet pieces here. It works quite nicely seeing them integrated as part of the leg design there. But I also love how he's done the sort of like crotch area here, using some system pieces, and then getting one of those smaller Hero Factory shell pieces in orange, and then just sort of getting one of those black tube pieces that we saw before, those T-bar pieces, and then putting some orange Exoforce robot arm pieces in there as well. I don't know, it just blends nicely. It kind of ties the legs up into the waist very nicely there, and it's just a cool looking design. And also the beautiful pop of green of his Hero Factory core there works very, very nicely. So yeah, a brilliant revamp of Nex. A bit of an underrated character from Hero Factory, but still a really cool character, that's for sure. So that's it for some Hero Factory mocks, villains, and heroes. I hope you very much enjoyed. And hey, if you've got an idea for a theme for a future episode of the Bionicle Inspiration series, you can always comment that theme below. But if you've got mocks that you want to see on the show, you can submit them through the following email that's on your screen right now. Additionally, there's links in the description to my own social media, so if you want to check out some of the stuff that I've got going on, that's the way to do it. You can also check out some of the links in the description to see some of the other things that these builders have done today. Be sure to maybe leave a comment on their MOCs and let them know what you think of what they built, because hey, there's some pretty good stuff out there. And much more that I wasn't able to put in this episode that these builders have done, so it's worth checking out. That's pretty much everything. Thank you very much, guys. Happy building, and bye for now.